2021 was a good year for my channel. I discovered Game Maker, made a few games with it, and made lots of that sweet content. But the most important part was that I learned a lot about content creation and game design. This brings us to a specific speedrun platformer titled the Shadowrunner, which would end up teaching me a lot more than I ever could have imagined. Before I can explain what happened with the Shadowrunner, I feel it's important to go over why it was created in the first place. At this point in my game development career, I've published two quote-unquote games, a tic-tac-toe game and a game jam game. I was proud of my ability to publish playable games, but something didn't sit right. The things I published didn't feel like games, and I wanted to make a game. I would start publishing weekly devlogs talking about the progress I was making with the Shadowrunner. I would not recommend watching them as they were really not good. But after a few months of development and making content, I had something that I believe could be released and decided to release it as the demo on my itch.io page. I published the demo by the end of the year and I felt proud of myself for what I had made, until I didn't. It might come as a surprise to you, but the game was actually really bad. So bad that I removed the game page a few months after releasing it because I didn't want to risk anyone playing it. But why had my opinion changed, and how did it get so bad? Before I go over the poor development decisions, allow me to list a fair few of the game's flaws. The character was hard to control, mostly due to the character sliding around everywhere. Unsurprisingly, moving around the levels in a speedrun platformer wasn't very much fun when it felt like every surface was made of ice. The level design didn't help either. I'll explain later why the levels were so poorly designed, but for now, just know that they were not fun to speedrun.
Well, that question is hard to answer, but the least I can do is show you how I've made my game more fun to speedrun.
On top of the gameplay being very not fun, there was also the music and pixel art, which I also didn't like. The entire game used the same tile set for every single level. I could show you one level from every world, and you wouldn't be able to differentiate them because all of them looked the exact same. Another thing that should be brought up is that the music, well, it was kind of just there. Little to no thought was put into whether the boss music fit the specific part in the game, and the World 2 tracks, OST 6 and 7 respectively, sound completely detached from what was actually happening and the part in the game that it was supposed to represent. Obviously, I'm not going to delete the entire soundtrack and start over. I actually like some of the songs in it, but I will be mindful of how fitting a given song is with its corresponding world or boss. By the way, I actually looked through my old devlog videos, and in devlog 5, I said this about remaking the OST.
Due to the tightly scheduled release date for the demo, I probably won't have the time to make the music as quality as I would want for a full release. So when the demo releases, I'll probably remake the OST from the ground up. But for now, what I'm making will have to do.
So, yeah. Back to the video. Anyway, those are the main issues I had with the game. There was also this strange obsession I had with hiding secrets everywhere, and also the writing was cringe, and said writing didn't actually tell the player, and you get the point. There was so much wrong with the game, and all of this came down to the development. The way I developed the Shadowrunner was what made it bad. Allow me to explain. This was my first time making a full game, and I had many ideas on what to do, and I wanted to make devlog videos and music and all this other stuff, but this led to a problem. You see, when I was working on the game, I wasn't thinking, how do I make the game fun and engaging and good for people to play? I was rather thinking, what can I do that will make it sound impressive when I upload this week's devlog? This mindset of make cool things caused me to continuously add all these flashy new things because it just sounded cool. Combine that with zero playtesting whatsoever, and you can see how all these gimmicks and stuff created a game that in the end, only I could play properly. When I eventually got someone to play the game, months after publishing the demo, mind you, they did not have a good time, and I had to go back in and fix a lot of stuff so that the game was even playable for some people. On top of not making the game fun, I also set my standards way too low for the pixel art, which is important because, when people look at the game, that's kind of what they're gonna see. Okay, I believe that's all the problems, so let's move on to how I'm gonna fix them. The first thing I fixed was the character's movement. I changed a few values to make the left and right movement feel more responsive and less slippery. I also increased the aerial mobility of the character, because I felt that the practical inability to accelerate in the air would make the character feel very bad to control. The next thing on the list of things to fix was the level design, and this wasn't as easy as changing a few values. I went through every single level, deleting the ones I didn't like, and then painstakingly designing new levels for the game. I also raised the amount of levels per world from 5 to 9, which means I had to design over 10 more levels on top of all the levels that I was redesigning. Then I made a whole new set of tile sets, one for each world, which meant I had to go through every level and tediously paint the tile set onto every surface. Now, this might seem like a lot of work, and don't get me wrong, it is, but after suffering through it all, I can tell you that it was most definitely worth it, because now, when I scroll through the new level select screen, it feels satisfying though that all of the nearly 40 levels in the game are polished more than the 20 or so levels in the demo ever could have been. On top of changing the tile sets to make the worlds feel different, I made a few posters to decorate the levels with. I'm still experimenting with visual decorations and adding little bits to make the levels seem more interesting, but playing the game now, it just seems a bit more fun now that there's all these little posters and quirky things all about the levels. Something I thought I had to fix, but ended up not fixing, was the difficulty. The only playtesters I had were people I knew, and they always complained about the difficulty. So for a while, I thought I needed to make the first few levels easier to get them into the game a bit better. But then something interesting happened. I found someone who was good at the game. Like, really good. Where most playtesters would take several minutes figuring out the second tutorial level and the mechanics it introduces, this specific person completed it faster than anyone had done before. I don't even remember the times of him or everyone before him, I just knew because he was that fast. Throughout the next week or so, he would beat every single level in World 1, then World 2, and then World 3. A similar thing would happen with another playtester a few days later. These events made me rethink playtesting and difficulty, and in the end, the early difficulty spike stayed. With everything I just said, you might be wondering what you should expect in the coming months. When will the game release? Will I upload new videos? What will happen to the channel? About the release of the game, since I'm not restricting myself to a deadline as I did with the old version, it's kinda up in the air when I'm gonna release it. But it's safe to say that if the game doesn't come out in 2023, whatever audience I'll have by then will have a right to be mad about it. I'll also be more serious about posting videos, and I'll be more strict when judging the quality of what gets uploaded to the channel. So, that was an update on the development of the Shadowrunner. I hope you enjoyed because this took a while to edit, and I'm pretty sure this is my longest video yet. Anyway, thank you for watching to the end, and goodbye.